You know, it's interesting what these reviews do for me sometimes. I had picked up the original The World Ends With You because I wanted to give it a chance, but I never sat down and finished it until I made the video. But with the gameplay, I was having a hard time, I guess, properly finishing it, and after the first week, I had a hard time pulling myself back in to just finish the game. That was not the case with this one. Neo: The World Ends With You. I was skeptical about the game when I saw the trailers. Then about a few weeks or so before the game's release, they came out with a demo, and while I did play it on the Switch and felt like the load times may have been an issue, I was shocked about how different this one really was from the last one. In a good way. But let's get the formalities out of the way. So just like with the first game, it was made by Square Enix with the team Hand, who helped make the first game's remake. The original team was Jupiter Corporation, which I failed to mention last time. Also, the final remix was probably made because the first title had some ports on the iOS and Android devices back in 2012, and another one in 2013 called The World Ends With You Solo Remix and Live Remix that had some of the changes in the final remix, the obvious one being the adaptation for lack of a second screen. This game's also not using a 2D isometric style, but it's made fully 3D, but still has that Nomura style that we've come to expect from him. I mean, hell, just look at the title sequence. But anyways, Neo was released on July 27th this year, with a PC release planned for later this year on the Epic Games Store, and once again is produced by Tetsuya Nomura and composed by Takaharu Ishimoto. I do notice a lot of familiar people working on both entries, but the only thing I noticed really different is the writer, which may explain a few things. Since this game is less than a month old, if you don't want the story spoiled for you, please skip to the timestamp, because I will be talking about the story entirely, as well as some of the end games of the first title. But if you're alright with that, let's go ahead and relive this wonderful world with Neo: The World Ends With You. The game takes place in the same one as last time, Shibuya, with it taking 3 whole years after the events of the last story, which, let's go ahead and rewind real quick here for a moment. After the events of the last game, Neku and his friends survived the Reaper's game and Joshua brought them back. But that ending didn't last long, with a New Day story segment pulling Neku and Beat back into the Reaper's game, this time accompanied by Koko Ararashi, who first appeared in the solo remix as a shop that sold microtransactions, which is just as fun as that sounds, I'm sure. But she served as a guide in the final remix. So apparently this little LOL random kawaii girl brought Neku and Beat back to the UG under the guise of an expert mode. Yes, she does speak like a teen talking in text lingo, take that as you will. She gives him a simple assignment to escape Shibuya after moving through a remix version of it. Yes, haha, Nomura, good job, buddy. A+ work.
Golf clap? Golf clap.
They confront Mr. H, and Coco is confirmed to be misleading the two players, and she sends a large noise to defeat the two, which they take care of, and all three appear in the RG, or Real Ground. But since this game couldn't have a happy ending, Coco shoots and kills Neku. We are then shown her summoning someone, saying that Neku and this Zeta-strong partner are needed for some plot, and we are then shown that a new game would start, teasing Neo. I guess I could have talked about this in the last video, but I wasn't sure how much of this was going to be important going into the new game, and it being an extra mode at the end of the first game with the remix. So let's head back to the beginning of Neo. We are shown the main protagonist, Rindo Kanade, a 15-year-old teenager who uses a lot of social media as well as searching anything up on the internet. He also plays a Pokemon Go type app game called Fango, assumably Fantasy Go, since they constantly reference Final Fantasy monsters, and nope, not yet. After heading to the 104, we come across Tosai Fret Furusawa, a happy-go-lucky and easygoing guy who gives everyone he meets some kind of play on their name, referring to Rindo as Rindude. Fret was late because he was shopping and picking up a special Reaper pin and throws it to Rindo, who misses it and is then handed to him by a seemingly random stranger. Unaware to them, they head out to go get lunch until Rindo gets a message from his longtime internet friend, Swallow, who is also in Shibuya playing Fango, and says they found a pretty rare monster. Fret, curious about this online friend that Rindo has never met up with, they decide to go and try and meet Swallow. However, at this point, they've entered the Reaper game. They see a colorful set of explosions and fighting, assuming that they've just walked onto some kind of movie set. That is, until the danger seems a little too close for comfort, do they decide to start making tracks, and Rindo gets a random flash of the future, with Shibuya in complete ruins. When he comes to, Rindo feels a sense of deja vu. It's when he watches Fret get crushed to death by Truck-sama. Rindo, losing his mind at the horror that he just watched, appears in a green void like space, and time rewinds, and Rindo is back to an earlier point of the chaos, this time guiding Fret away from where the truck would have crushed him. Well, at least Rindo has seen Kagaru days. We then see the title flash with some of the important characters that we'll be seeing for this game. After the title crawl, the first week into the Reapers game begins, where we see Best Girl, Shoka Surane, who sets up the RNS on their phones or the Reapers network service, and comes across Suzukichi, a player who explains scanning and fighting the noise. After solving the game's puzzle, they head to defeat the target at Shibuya Hikari, where they are overwhelmed. Luckily, everyone's favorite math man Sho Minamimoto comes into the rescue and berates them, as he is known to do, calling them zeptograms, which basically means that they are like zeros, but not exactly. Fret idolizing the dude and thinking of him as a new teammate, Rindo is cautious about his help. After the target is erased, Mr. Minamimoto leaves and Shoka is surprised that a few newbies did surprisingly well. Fret says goodbye to Rindo and starts to head home. Rindo texts Swallow and hopes that they'll be able to meet up another time. Day 2 then immediately starts with Rindo waking up in the scramble crossing shocked that he can't go home. That's when this asshole meets up with Fret and Rindo, Tanzo Kubo, which, just look at this man and tell me he just doesn't look like a proper asshole. He then taunts the two, saying that if they can manage to make it to first place at the end of the week, then they'll be granted a wish. Later on, they meet Precious Cinnamon Roll Kai Ono, who is a Reaper that speaks to people in person through text messages, saying that it's easier that way for him to express himself. He gives the two a breakdown of the workings of the underground and how that they can't really interact with the people in the real ground or the RG, unless of course they see a Reaper sticker at certain shops. After finding today's mission puzzle, Fret is able to activate his power, the ability to remind people about things that they may have forgotten. While on the way back to finish the mission, the Game Master Shiba Miyakaze announced that Fret renamed Rindo's group because he thought it was their text message group into a team name, now called the Wicked Twisters, which Rindo finds a bit cringy but doesn't have any better suggestions. They then head to the 104 and they summon the boss, a giant monkey! After the team smacks it down and erases the noise, the pin is picked up by Canon Takanama, claiming all the points for the Very Beauties, a competing team. Rindo tries to ask for it back, but a flustered Fret go ahead and decides to let her have it, with Shoka scolding them for their laid-back demeanor and saying that they should try to get another player onto their team. Day 3 is all about recruiting Best Girl Nagi Usui, a college-age girl who is obsessed with her husbando Tomonami from an app game that she's playing with a Ida bag dedicated to the 2D character who they've come to realize looks very similar to Mr. Minamimoto, and she does what every fangirl does when they see a 3D lookalike of their husbando and sip the fuck out of him. Despite her youthful-like appearance, she's very neurotic and is off in her own world at times. She is very intelligent and has a vast vocabulary while being highly perceptive and is able to pick up on people's emotions quite well. She has no problem getting along with Rindo, referring to him as Lord Rindo, after bestowing upon her a limited edition pin of her husbando, but is cold and distant towards Fret, saying that, as we see later on, that he is too much in the realm of light, where she is more of a darker creature, and that the two's affinity more often than not clash, going with her whole otaku-like demeanor. The next few days are introducing some other team members and whatnot, as well as some of the things unique to the Reapers game, like Scramble Slam, which is basically a turf war in the city, which brings the Wicked Twisters from last place to second place. On the final day, although the Wicked Twisters will be safe from erasure, they want to go for the number 1 spot and take down the Ruin Bringers, the consistently top team. The group takes on Suzukichi when, out of nowhere, a mysterious figure comes in and saves them, and they take down Suzukichi. But because of that mysterious person that they believe is the legendary player Neku from the first game, Shiba declares that this game is void and forces them to play again. It's at this point that Minamimoto also takes off, saying he's collected enough data from them in order to move on with his goal, making Rindo fearful about next week, thinking they won't be able to win without his help, with the losers of this week facing erasure being the Deep River Society. Oh yeah, they are in the game. Anyway, showing that this game is truly life or death with only 4 teams left: the Ruinbringers, the Very Beauties, the Pure Hearts, and the Wicked Twisters. Week 2 starts up and the Wicked Twisters are freaking out about surviving this week, thinking that they stop competing for now and focus on recruiting a new player, the legendary Neku. After no luck, they take down a tough noise, and after defeating it, Sugumi Matsune from the Ruinbringers, who we see at the end of the first game's New Day mode, claiming that she had already defeated the targets single-handedly and claimed the pin, with Rindo feeling like he had seen her before. The second day kicks off, and they receive today's mission to defeat Neku Sakuraba. They decide to still move forward with recruiting Neku as opposed to defeating him, with the Wicked Twisters interacting with other teams, where they finally head back to the Scramble Crossing and see that Neku is defeated by Sugumi. With it, asshat Kubo encourages her to erase him, claiming he's not a Reaper nor a player and can be treated like noise, with Neku being erased. That is until Rindo uses his replay ability that allows him to rewind time back to a previous point he's already lived. Yeah, so since like the third day, Rindo has been able to rewind time, or at least is more aware of it, and is explained to us, the player, from a gameplay standpoint, that I can get into more later, but basically Rindo can rewind time and activate the ability from his pin only when, as he puts it, shit hits the fan, and can only use the ability once per day to change fate. He can warp back to any point that he has been to already and change the outcome of scenarios with memories of what's going to happen. After going back to multiple points in time and are forced into a fight with Sugumi, so she doesn't find Neku first and fights her animated stuffed animal, Mr. Mew, which at this point Neku takes off the master reveal.
Listen up, yo! I ain't Neku. The name's Beat, yo. Beat?
Meaning that mission to erase Neku is void since Neku is actually Beat. And Kubo invites Beat to join as a player, with Fret really hitting it off with Beat and invites him to join the Wicked Twisters.
I can dig it. Let's do this thing.
Hell to the yeah, dude!
Peas in a pod.
An idiot pod.
Beat is a bit different this time, I think. I don't know. I mean, I like him here more than in the first game. He definitely works better off of Fret than he ever did with Neku, with Beat saying he's happier not having to hide like he was before. Day 3 begins, another of Scramble Slam, but we find something interesting, that Beat feels that there's something different about this game. Something's off. Besides the fact that there is a team this time around, when before they were stuck with one person constantly and needed their partner to use their pins, another thing being that he doesn't remember dying, as he puts it. He was just riding around on his board and then he was in the game. With Nagi also feeling like she didn't die either, that she kind of just appeared to be in the game now, with Fret and Rindo feeling the same way. The rest of the weeks progress with learning more about the city, with the Wicked Twisters getting help from an unnamed individual, led to believe that it's Muay Thai of the Pure Hearts, who Rindo found out earlier that when Muay Thai was alive, that he was going by the alias Another, a poet who is popular on social media that resonated with Rindo. However, towards the end of the week, they find out that Another plagiarized his work and was taking credit from unknown artists and getting rich off other people's work, deeply upsetting Rindo, finding out that he again took credit for something that he didn't do, that being he helped out the Wicked Twisters when in all actuality, it was Shoka. She ends up getting demoted for being a Reaper, with Muay Thai trying to turn her into the higher-ups, but with the Wicked Twisters defeating Muay Thai, with Kubo saying that if Muay Thai can make it to the next week, that maybe they allow him into the Reapers. Muay Thai realizing that his team is already on the chopping block for this week, with Kubo saying that it's not his problem. With the final day here, the rest of the teams work together to team up against the Ruinbringers, with the plan the Wicked Twisters getting out of here and dropping the Ruinbringers into last place. The plan gets derailed, however, when Suzukichi recovers early and Rindo talks to Shoka saying that because she got demoted and now she's a player again, she should join their team, with Shoka shocked, not believing that they would want her on their team. They manage to take down both Suzukichi and Sugumi with hopes of pulling out the Ruinbringers leader. But it turns out to be Shiba, and the Wicked Twisters realize that the entire Ruinbringers team is full of Reapers, with Shiba having the team outnumbered by these new breed of noise, and because Rindo used his replay ability already, he can't change the future again. However, Shiba knew this because Shoka gave Shiba the information so she could rejoin the ranks of the Reapers, much to Rindo's dismay, and Shiba forces Rindo and his team to surrender to the Ruinbringers, making this week's losers the Pure Hearts, and Rindo takes his former idol's erasure pretty badly. With Shoka being re-invited to the Reapers, with an angry Rindo yelling at her, telling her to go ahead and join them, saying that it's not like she was one of them anyways, with a hurt Shoki replying that she's not joining the Reapers. She won't let them erase Shibuya. With that stunning revelation, Shiba announces that next week's game will be the last one, and that if the Ruinbringers win, Shibuya will be erased. With the final week starting, Shiba gives the 2 remaining teams one last task: defeat him before the week is over. With that, the Wicked Twisters try to devise a plan to take him down, with Shoka apologizing and explaining that if she spied on them, then she could have been a Reaper. But she didn't follow through because she didn't want to lose Shibuya, or Rindo, and the rest of the Wicked Twisters. Rindo confesses that he still wants her around and to fight by their side, and with that, they set off to take down the Ruinbringers. The team has to deal with the new plague noise, which is only able to be defeated when exposed to black lights, as well as these new noise can infect people to take out everything and leave them as empty husk. During the week, more people get erased, including the Very Beauties and their leader Cannon, much to Fret's dismay. At this point, Fret is consoled by his team members, most notably Nagi. With the 4th day, Rindo gets a message from one of the Reapers, Uzuki, asking if they have seen Koki, with him being infected by the plague noise. They manage to save him and start looking for Kubo in hopes of finding Shiba's location. However, he had a pack of human husk zombies to attack them. But Rindo, making good use of his rewind ability, they managed to eliminate the plague's nest, so there were less to fight. Which, after they dispatch and go to take on Kubo, Mr. Minami steps in with Fret, Nagi, and Rindo happy to see him, only for Beat to let them know that he was once a Reaper and had caused issues for him before, and that Minamimoto is only interested in helping himself, with Mr. Minami calling in the bird noise nearby to Rindo's shock, realizing that all those birds are created every time Rindo goes back in time and changes the future. But Minamimoto couldn't handle the excess energy and turns into a more rage-filled version of the noise boss that he was in the first game. The Wicked Twisters barely managed to hold him off before they try to bail, unable to take him in this new form. But Beat took too much damage and decides to hold him off while the rest of the team takes off. Beat insists that they do leave him behind, with the rest of the team refusing, as Minamimoto bashing down on top of Beat. Rindo feeling helpless since they already turned back time that day, Minamimoto goes to deliver the final blow, with a flash of light coming down from the sky and appearing from it, Neku, Sakuraba. Neku is more grown up than in the last game and doesn't act like an asshole, which makes sense for his growth considering the ending of the last game, and is kinda more like the only real adult around the party, which I can respect that, I suppose. After the formalities, Neku fills in with the Wicked Twisters and us the player that 3 years ago he was dragged back in the UG, and when he came to, he was in the remains of Shinjuku, a place where the original Reapers came from, including Shoka. They mentioned it earlier, it's just that Shiba erased Shinjuku, a place just north of Shibuya, and wiped it clear from history as well as everyone in the RG's mind about this place. Anyways, we come to find out that Neku befriended Koko, as her goal was to save Shinjuku and her friend Tsugumi, who is trapped inside Mr. Mew. Neku also reveals he can see the same visions as Rindo and that these are coming from Tsugumi, which they manage to help Tsugumi's mind, but find that the only person who can put Mr. Mew back together and get her out is the creator herself, Shiki. With the final day here, the team manages to meet and defeat Shiba. However, after the erasure, Kubo emerges as the true master behind everything, that he was the one who gave Shiba his new powers and helped him erase Shinjuku. Cause Kubo isn't a Reaper, he's an angel, specifically the Executioner. Specifically the Executor, which, is this a JoJo's reference? He's also the one who pulled Rindo, Fret, Nagi, and Beat into the UG, since they never died and gave them their special powers. And with that, he calls upon the crows from Rindo's pin as a backup measure in case Shiba failed to destroy Shibuya. Rindo, without any other option, replays again. He then keeps replaying till he can convince not only Shiba, but put together everything in place to put a stop to everything, in hopes of stopping the noise from his pin, as well as Kubo. With a second iteration, he enlists Hishima, a former friend and Reaper of Shiba, which he shows up a bit earlier in this week, but like, with his whole personality and everything, it's like,
You can never read that guy.
he helps get Shiba on their side. The noise is then released from Rindo's pin, but even with everyone's combined efforts, it's still not enough. Shiba and Hishima get erased, but it doesn't stop there. Fret gets wiped out, along with Nagi, Beat, and Neku. Rindo, completely unable to move, gives up in a pit of despair. The reality starts to sit in as Shoka realizes that even if they turn back time, the noise would be even stronger than they are now. But when she sees the noise turn its attention towards Rindo, Shoka pushes him out of the way and gets blasted. She starts to fade away, with her last words saying that she thought that Rindo and her could have played the new Fango update together, revealing that she was Swallow. Kubo snaps his fingers and Rindo's pin breaks into pieces, announcing that the game is over, and so is Shibuya. But as he stands there and gloats, a beam of white light appears and obliterates him, and Rindo wakes up in the crossing, but people are walking around, and someone bumps into him, and he realizes that he's back in the RG, and sees that his phone's working again, and that he is alive, unsure of how he got there. But the happy realization soon turns sour when he realizes that no one else came back with him. Everything went back to how things were before the game started, but Fred isn't back, and neither is anyone else. All traces of his friends don't exist online anymore. Nobody remembers them either, like they never existed. Rindo sits at the statue of Hachiko, feeling confused when a person by the name of Hazuki Haz Mikagi asking for a tour of Shibuya. Rindo reluctantly leads Haz around before Haz reveals to him that he exorcised a man named Kubo, that Rindo had to take a second to realize who he was, and find out that Haz is an angel from the higher plane. Which, gotta say, if this man is an angel, I may have found a new religion to start. Kaz is the one who gave Kubo his orders to erase Shinjuku, but when Kubo stepped over his bounds and tried to erase Shibuya, he had him exorcised from the timeline, meaning that he no longer exists and no one else will remember him. Haz offers Rindo one last chance to fix the future, saying that he could leave things as they are now. Rindo is alive and well, and so is everyone else in the city, and there's no guarantee that things will be easier. Kubo is gone, and he won't be coming back, but the noise will be stronger, and that Haz won't interfere again. Rindo, realizing that Shibuya just isn't the same without his friend, and decides to try one last time to make things right. With the third iteration, Rindo plans more strategically, getting everyone he can to put things right, including Rhyme, who is apparently a hacker who hacked into the RNS, as well as a returning Shiki, who can't see Shoka or Neku, confirming that on the team, they are actually dead, and can't be seen in the RG. The team squares off against the noise that formed together to make the Phoenix Cantus, a giant phoenix-like creature with rainbow-like properties fighting inside the rewind space that Rindo used. After its defeat, Shiba decides to end the game and free the Wicked Twisters. However, Shoka is revealed that she is going to be erased for not being a Reaper anymore, that being the Shinjuku rules. However, because of course this fucking guy Joshua shows up, and of course he's the guy Rindo bumped into at the very beginning and handed back his pin, he says that he wants to play a game with Rindo, and with that, he brings Shoka back into the RG, but says that Rindo has to find her amongst the other stray cats, as he puts it. Weeks go by, and everything is more or less back to normal, except he can't find Shoka, and she's not responding on Fango anymore, and that her account has been inactive, when he bumps into someone on the street, that being Shoki. She gets angry at Rindo, ignoring her friend request she sent from a new account since she can't access her old account anymore, and that she has to start back at level 1. After Rindo accepts her friend request, Rindo puts his phone away, and she comments that they are officially friends.
Friends.
Wow, so that was a crazy amount to get through, but man, has this story hit me a hell of a lot more than the first game. And even with time travel mechanics, it handled it a lot better than some other titles I know. Anyway, so let's talk about the gameplay. For the most part, you're using pins, but because you have a team, each player you get has a designated pin, and that pin has a designated button that is assigned to it at the start. No two pins can have the same button assigned, and you can't equip more than one Uber pin at the start, which is usually a really powerful pin. Pins range like they did before, but now they require button to be pressed or held down according to what the pin requires. The game does reintroduce the groove mechanic, which was something I forgot to mention in the last review, but I'm only human, not like I'm allowed to make mistakes or anything. But if you time your attacks and alternate hitting the noise with other pins, your groove meter will rise and will fall if you just mash the buttons without timing your attacks, which when you match at 100% will do an elemental move based on the last pin's hit type. The 200% will do the same, but with a hell of a lot more effects and damage, as well as a chance to refill the groove meter. Finally, 300% being maxed out and doing a wave of scatter shots to dust the noise, and doing one final mega blast and a full heal on top of that. The food mechanic returns, but this time instead of buying food for one person and feeding them, you now eat as a group, and make sure you have enough for everyone, as well as make sure you don't overfill your group's fullness meter. If it goes over 100%, then you have to go fight the noise until it reaches 0% again, or just make sure you don't go over and fight the noise again to lower the fullness meter. So it's a nice balancing act, which in this, before you eat, you can tell based on how they react whether or not if they will like the food. And this is how you increase your stats, from attack, defense, max HP, and style. The food varies these different stats, and the range varies based on how many calories. Excuse me? That says it's just a can of air! It has how many calories? Man, no wonder my ass is so fat, it's just filled with fucking air! Anyways, since leveling up from fighting the noise only increases your overall HP like food, clothing returns as a way to increase your stats, and certain characters get special buffs if their style is high enough. So in the first one, you couldn't wear the clothes if your style wasn't high enough, and the shopkeepers had to unlock the special abilities. However, this time the shopkeepers just unlock more clothing, and getting your style high enough unlocks any ability, but wearing all of one style can have an overall boost. But that's right, any one person can wear anything you have with you, which just truly lives up to the meme.
So, you finally arrived. What the hell are you wearing?
It's my ass-kicking outfit, bitch!
Some of the game's mechanics are unique, meant for puzzle solving, like Rindo's rewind ability to get through the story, as well as Fret's remind ability, which has you do similar to the Arkham mini-games where you're hacking into it through rotating the analog stick until it creates the right picture. Nagi's ability is more used for side quests, which have these gauntlet-style fights where you can scam people and ninja dive into people's minds to wipe out the noise, which are usually stipulation fights. Like in the last game, I also forgot to mention, but here we are. They range from enemies hitting harder, slowly draining your health, being kaiju size, or healing you after they die. With the fast travel mechanic introduced halfway through week 2, you can time your button presses and adds a remix-like quality with like record scratches, not unlike riding Yoshi in Super Mario World with him adding bongos to the background music. And in all honesty, this is another fantastic soundtrack. It really is so fucking good. I can't stress this enough. Like, the same with the Sonic games. These games just have a killer fucking tracks that everyone I've played these songs to think they're just fucking bangers. The shops are pretty much the same as before, but the shop keeps along with some of the restaurants and important characters when you get to the point. You can sync with them to get new abilities, as well as new clothes or some quality of life adjustments, so be sure to help out people whenever you can. But don't forget, you can always revisit a day thanks to Rindo's rewind ability, so don't sweat if you miss something the first go around. In fact, later abilities are needed to 100% the game, so you won't get all the crazy endgame stuff until the end. Like the first game, this has a crazy what-if scenario that doesn't tie anything to the main story's canonicity. That includes some super boss fights that does, however, unlock a secret ending that may tease a future title, but I won't spoil that here. With all that said, can I recommend this game? Of fucking course, yo! This game is fucking sick for reals! The gameplay had me hooked the entire time. I wouldn't sweat if you hadn't played the first game. You can go into this one as a first-time player, and anything important from the last game gets explained in this game anyways. It's like if you played the first Pokemon Generation 2 without having played Generation 1, it's not needed to know who Giovanni was to help the story go along or stuff like that, you know? It's just cool to know the roots if you do. Alright, well, coming at you next, I feel the need to practice my saber skills, and with that, it's No More Heroes, Travis Strikes Back. I want to try and get this video out before No More Heroes 3, but hey, what can you do? I do plan on doing No More Heroes 3, as well as before hopping into the next platformer game I got lined up. But hey, you made it to the end, so maybe you liked the video, or if not, tell me in the comment section below, and go ahead and make sure you tap that subscribe button and smack that bell to know when the next video's out, Make sure to check me out on the Bluebird, the Purple Box, and Nostalgia Cam if you want to see more of my art, as well as whatever updates and gameplay I'll be giving in between reviews. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you guys again real soon.